Morning, everyone, on what is hopefully for you as well, a beautifully sunny Wednesday. Welcome to part 2 of our AI webinar series. Today we are talking about the standard Copilots and Business Central standard Copilot functionality. My name is Robbie Goff. I'm a solutions alchemist at TVT, which is still the best job title I've ever had. I'm joined by Paul Cartwright. Paul, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I don't have a cool job title. I'm just the CTO here. So yeah, I don't get something cool like that. But yeah, I'm CTO at TVT, and you should know me hopefully from the other webinars in this series.
We can swap job titles if you want, Paul.
Happily.
So before we get properly started, brief intro, some housekeeping. Questions, there's a Q&A little icon. So if you have any questions, please fire them into that Q&A bit. If you put them in the chat, it's not the end of the world. We will try to pick them up as we go, but if we can't get to them as we go, we should have 5 or 10 minutes at the end where we'll cover them all. And also the session is being recorded. So if you've got colleagues who couldn't make it or you need to drop off, it's all being recorded. We'll send the slides and the recording out once the session is done. A very brief recap of our session last month for those who couldn't make it. It was an intro to AI. So we discussed what existed before AI in Business Central with rules-based automation. We spoke about the evolution through machine learning to generative AI and then agentic AI. We had a sort of brief recap of generative AI, the transformer paper, GPTs, all those kinds of things. Spoke about the risks from data and hallucinations all the way to the existential risks like job displacements, etc. And then we spoke about Microsoft's vision for agentic ERP, which kind of leads us on to today, which is, again, standard Copilot functionality. It's going to be a hands-on tour of everything that exists in Business Central Copilot-wise, which means lots of demos. We'll talk about what's generally available, what's in preview, and at the end, we'll talk about what's to come. And we'll also talk about all of the more boring stuff, I would say, like how to enable it and privacy and security and that sort of stuff. Before we crack on, here is our roadmap or our timeline for the AI webinars. As you can see, we've already done one, exploring standard Copilots today. The next 3 are on agents, so sales order agent, the payables agent. We might have to find some way to sneak the expenses agent in there, as that's been announced now, is out in August, and then agent builder. So on that note, we won't be covering agents today, just standard Copilot functionality. So take a screenshot of that if any of those interest you. Hopefully they all do. Let's make a start. And we're going to start with the lay of the land. What are we covering? When did it all get introduced? And where do we enable it? And this is what we're covering today. So this is all of the standard Copilot functionality in BC right now. So at the top, the things that say GA and are in green, these are all the things that are generally available. Marketing text, bank recs, advanced tell me, and analyze with Copilot, spelt with a Z, which kills me every time. And all of the stuff in black with preview is the stuff that's in what Microsoft call a production ready preview. So it's in your production environments ready to use. It's just got a different set of preview terms and SLA and things like that.
I think it's worth, before we go into this, the difference between GA and preview. We found that some things are almost go straight to general to GA. Some things sit in preview for a long time, and it's a bit like Gmail. If anyone remembers that when Google released Gmail, it was in beta for like a decade or more, but it was perfectly functioning. So some of these things are genuinely our preview. Some we think are actually pretty good and probably you can just go on and use. It doesn't mean, preview isn't so woolly, but Microsoft are covering themselves a little bit with it.
And some of these things have been in preview for like a year or two, it feels like.
Exactly. So, yeah, which either means that they're as good as they're going to get, in which case take them out of preview, or they're about to, or Microsoft can't get them to where they want to be. But we'll talk about those ones when we get there.
Yeah. Timeline-wise, here's a brief recap of the timeline. So Microsoft announced Copilot in March of 2023. I think it was then around April or May that they announced marketing text suggestions, which was the first bit of Copilot functionality in BC, and that went into GA in November. And you can see from there, it's been a drip feed of Copilot functionality with every release, effectively. Chat with Copilot, through to bank recs, through to autofills, and then advanced tell me, and then more has come in the latest release that we'll cover towards the end of the session. We're going to do privacy, security, and licensing now instead of at the end. 6 or so points to cover here. So we'll start with the service. The service that Copilot uses is an OpenAI service, but it's hosted in Microsoft's own Azure. So it's not an OpenAI service that OpenAI can see the data effectively, which for some people that will be nice or important, I suppose.
It's interesting that we say it's OpenAI. It is at the moment. All the stuff we're about to show you uses OpenAI models, so GPT, all those kind of underlying chat GPT models. But it's interesting that we see that in other parts of the Microsoft stack, in Copilot and Copilot Co-work, they are starting to use the Anthropic models, so Claude, and all those like Sonnet and Opus. So it is OpenAI at the moment. I don't know if it'll be OpenAI going forwards or if they'll mix and match. I think Microsoft, back to the timeline, Microsoft invented and created lots of these things a couple of years ago actually, and set their stall when they were much more in bed with OpenAI as a business. Now they're kind of being a bit more agnostic, contractually. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing them build some of these things on models that aren't OpenAI and GPT. So if you're a bigger fan of Claude than you are of ChatGPT, there might be good news on the horizon there, maybe.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. Is that expense agent? Is that running on Anthropic models? I think it is. The new one they just announced.
Potentially, that's a good question. Yeah, I think it might be actually. It's a good point.
I think it is. Which means, yeah, two of the newer things, Co-work, although that obviously is a Claude product effectively, and expense agent, moving away from OpenAI. Interesting. Next point. No model training. So all of the functionality you're seeing today, it will leverage your business data and read your business data, but that isn't being used to train the models. We spoke about it in the last session. GPT stands for generative pre-trained model. So all of these models are already trained, so it's not reading your business data. I don't think, are there any exceptions there, Paul?
No, I mean, they're certainly not pushing back into the models. I think we'll talk about a few where later on in the session, we'll talk about how it's not the model that gets trained, but the data it's given to come with an answer kind of learns in air quotes. But no, they're definitely not training the models. They're not they're not using your data to train their models. That's the big thing.
Next one, user permissions. So I think people have some concerns that if we take something like Chat with Copilot, for example, that I could ask it about some data that I don't have access to and that Copilot could surface that. But it's not how it works. All of this Copilot functionality, it respects the permissions of the signed in user. So I can't use this AI functionality to get around my user permissions effectively.
Having said that, some people's systems are set up in a way that permissions aren't the way you control access to things. It's just lack of knowledge. If someone doesn't know how to get to the general ledger, they can't use it. So they haven't restricted permissions. They've given all their users super and just said, oh well, those guys don't know how to get to that thing anyway, so it doesn't matter. The thing with these tools is they are much better at surfacing information. So it is a point at which you should make sure your permissions are in check and that genuinely people only have access to the things they're supposed to have access to, not just they don't know how to get there. So it's worth noting.
Great point. EU data boundary. This is around governance and compliance and stuff. If your Business Central was in the EU boundary, then the Azure OpenAI endpoint is also in that same boundary, and that includes the EU. That includes the UK. Where that differs a bit is if you have Bing search enabled. We'll look at what that looks like in Business Central in a minute, but if you have enable Bing search, which enables all of your Copilot functionality to reach out and do web searches, that prompt is processed in the US. It's set off by default, and again, we'll show you how to turn that on. But yeah, just something to be aware of. And the big one, everything we're going to look at today is included with licenses in BC. So agents, which we discussed that we're not covering today, have a different SKU. They use Copilot credits, but all of this, for the moment and probably for the foreseeable, is included in your license, so it's all free.
Yeah, we say for the foreseeable, we genuinely think that because fundamentally agents, the things we'll talk about next few sessions, and we've talked about it before, where it kind of does a whole process for you, are much more demanding on the back end services on the AI. Whereas these things, most of them are it sends a bunch of data and gets a single response. Those responses can be quite big and complex, but it's only doing it once per kind of button click. So they're significantly less demanding on the AI backend. So I never say never, but it feels like Microsoft. I can understand why Microsoft will include these in the license, because really the cost of running them is nothing like the cost of running agents.
Yeah. And with that, let's move on to some demos. We have categorized all of this Copilot functionality into 3 categories. We've got productivity, operational stuff, and accounting. And we will start with productivity. I will jump over to BC. And the first thing we are going to start with, the first thing we are going to start with is the humble summarize. So if I navigate to a card, and let's just pick the item card, and we'll select this Barolo here, which is going to come up a few more times. You'll see immediately in the top right of our card, we have this summary little fact box thing, and it's immediately generating data already. And what summary is it's going to create a 3 or 4 sentence long summary of the record that's shown. And it uses fields from the record, specifically fields from the page, actually. It will pull data from fact boxes, and it will also pull data from related or associated statistics pages. So you can see here that it's given me some information about my inventory, items on purchase order, prices compared to costs, and profit margins as well. And when it surfaces all of this data, it will let you drill down and view. So if I select that, it's taking me to my inventory field. If I go to here, where my profit margin, it's going to take me to my profits section down here, et cetera, et cetera. You can regenerate these if you want using this little regenerate button, though you're going to largely get the same summary most times. It's also based on your role. So depending on the role that you've got in BC, it will tailor that summary based on your role. You can, if you want, hide this. You can copy the summary as well. And what's nice about this copy summary is it's got all of the data in the summary, but it also then deep links to the record too. So you can grab that, chuck it straight into Teams or some other messaging service, and someone can view the summary and then go straight to the record as well. I'm also told that this automatically regenerates every 10 minutes. Though again, quite why you'd want to do that, I'm not sure.
Just to jump in, one of the things they announced in the latest release is now that programmatically we can also hide those things. One of the things they did, much like the rest of Microsoft's Copilot approach, was to put it everywhere. And it's the top fact box. All of a sudden, every screen you look at, you get this summary, which is really useful in some places and not useful in others. You can now programmatically, as a developer, we can go and hide those by default, so you can turn them off, which is a big win for decluttering the screens. So yeah, worth noting. Not that they're not good, but you might not want them.
And on a similar note as well, I mentioned that this appears on most cards and documents. It also appears on custom cards and documents. So if you've got an extension installed with some custom objects, it will appear on there automatically as well. And permission-wise, we might cover this a little bit later, but all of the Copilot functionality we're looking at today has got specific permissions and permission set. So there's a permission set called, I think it's called Copilot sys something. We'll have a look at it. So if for some reason you didn't want your user to have access to this summary, you can disable it through permissions if you want. One final thing it does that will segue us nicely into the next bit of functionality to look at is we have the show more bit. So if you want to see more of a summary, more text, more than just 3 or 4 sentences, you can hit show more. And what that will do is open our little chat with Copilot, which is the next bit we're going to look at, chat with Copilot. With regards to the show more button, you can see that it is, hopefully, this is the perils of demoing not just software live, but AI live. Hopefully it's going to give us a slightly more...
We're going to get this all day. All session is going to be us talking while the progress bar moves as well, because it takes a little while sometimes.
Yeah. So there you go. We've got a more thorough summary showing us stuff about last receipt days, alcohol percentage even. But this takes us into our chat with Copilot. So this is kind of a theme with a lot of this functionality. It will often give us or show us examples of prompts. So you can see here that broadly what it's used for is to find records. So that's searching for and surfacing records. To explain and guide, this chat with Copilot has got access to the MS Learn documentation. So we can search those documentations if you need help with the process. And also this ask bit, which isn't quite as useful. If we go to the view prompts, you can see here the kinds of things we can ask it. So for something like find, we can say, show me this purchase invoice. Or we can say, show me all the sales invoices for this customer. We can go to a specific page through here. We can query items in stock under X price. There's also a bit here, a new bit for group vendors by country. And what that does is it creates an analysis tab or an analysis view that Paul's going to cover in a little bit, so I won't show you that one. But for example, we can say something like, show me, in fact, good practice here, hit new chat if you're going to ask it a question that isn't related to the thing that you were talking to it about before. So I can say, show me all customers with an overdue balance. And again, hopefully this plays ball and is relatively quick. It does vary a little bit. Sometimes it's quite, obviously it depends on the sort of questions you're asking it, but sometimes it's fairly quick and sometimes it could take a little bit longer. But that's going to surface all my customers with an overdue balance. There they are. You'll note it's only showing 3 records when actually there might be more than 3 customers with an overdue balance. It can only show 3. So if you need to see more, it will often just link you to the list or the page with a filter applied. So if I select that, I won't drill down, but it's actually applied a filter to that list. And if we go back to our view prompts, we also have this explain and guide bit. So we can ask the chat with Copilot questions around processes. We can ask it about keyboard shortcuts and things like that. And I mentioned earlier that we can enable this Bing search functionality. So when we ask questions to chat with Copilot, it can reach out and do web searches. What's cool about this is if you have that enabled, and I'll show you how to enable that in a bit, if you have an extension installed and whoever created the extension has linked to documentation in there, there's a place where you can define a linked documentation. So for example, in all of our products, we link to our Bevica knowledge base.
It's worth noting that we do link to the Bevica knowledge base. Those who are Bevica customers will know we've recently moved our knowledge base to that platform. One of the reasons for that is it makes it available to here because it's no longer behind. You don't have to log in to view it. So this can currently only access information that's on the open web. It can't like log into your your portal and see stuff, which is part of why we've published that out there, is to make it available to everyone through these sort of interfaces.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, let me flick off again. I keep flicking off by accident. So if I come here and I say in Bevica, not Bevica, in Bevica, what are paid reserves? How do they work? So without the documentation provided and the enable Bing search, it's probably not I say probably it's not going to know what these are, but because it now has that enable Bing search set up and it's got a link to our knowledge base, we can query that knowledge base via the chat with Copilot piece. So it's going to say, checking the documentation. Hopefully it gives us a nice response. And when it does, there we go. Inventory items have been paid for and recorded in the system, managed through paid reserve journals. And what it will also do is show you where in the documentation it's found that. So it will provide its sources.
I think that's really important. The amount, like, obviously a big undercurrent in this generative AI is it hallucinates. It can, it can make things up. So they often, you'll find it's giving you the references, the kind of the receipts to where I got that information from. It's always worth clicking through just in case. But yeah.
So let's jump back to the PowerPoint and we'll do a brief recap of those 2 bits of functionality. So the first was summarize with Copilot, 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, I think I said, sentence summary on any record, card, document. So we get that little fact box. Here's on customers, vendors, items, but also custom card pages. It will hyperlink back to the source field. So where it found that information, it will hyperlink back to it. Included, if it gets that from like a statistics page or something, it will take you straight to that statistics page. We have that show more option. So if we want to see a bit more of a summary, we can hit show more. It'll open our chat with Copilot pane. And we also have that copy summary. So we can hit that. Deep links, the summary and the link to the record on our clipboard, and then we can chuck it into Teams or wherever. In terms of some tips, again, it is role aware. So if you're a sales rep, you'll see slightly different summary than to what an FC or something would see. It respects personalization. So if you keep getting fields appear in the summary that you don't want to see for whatever reason, if you were to hide that, then Copilot would ignore it, which is quite nice. And we discussed permissions. There is an allow Copilot summary permission, which is included in that Copilot sys features permission set. To enable it, there is a page that I might show off very briefly now, actually called Copilot and Agent Capabilities. I'll jump back into BC very quickly and just show you what that looks like. So if we come to our search, go to Copilot and Copilot and agent capabilities. So here is everything that we're going to discuss today, including agents, and you can essentially deactivate or activate specific bits of functionality that you want activated or don't. And it will show you the billing type as well. And you can see here that all of the agent stuff actually is billed differently to standard Copilot functionality. And then we've also got this enable Bing search bit here. So this by default is going to be disabled, but if you want your Copilot to reach out and do web searches, then you can enable that too. Jump back to the PowerPoint. And also a brief recap of our chat with Copilot. So find, explain, analyze, and guide. What it does, find records, so search and surface records, show me the latest order for X customer. We can analyze data, which Paul is going to show us in a minute. We can explain and guide, so it can do that semantic search of the MS learned documentation, but it can also do web searches and search for specific extension documentation if it's been provided. You can also get field tooltips. So I didn't look at this, but on any card or document, not custom fields, but standard fields, if you hover over a field and you see the tooltip, you can then hit a Copilot button and it will generate effectively a summary of the tooltip or the field, which is quite useful. Tips. We saw that view prompt section. You're going to see that in a lot of this functionality throughout, so use that if you need some inspiration. It's only going to show you 3 record tiles per response. So if you need to see more, either use the analysis piece or select the link to the list or the page that it gives you. Hit new chat if you're going to switch topics. That is a general piece of AI. That's just a useful tip generally, I should say. I couldn't get my words out. It's just to hit a new chat if you are going to ask it a question that's not related to what you were talking to it about before. And this only works on the web client, the chat with Copilot. So if you are using the app or the browser, then it won't work on your mobile, basically. And you can enable that in the Copilot and agent capabilities page via the chat record. And with that, I will hand over to Paul, who I think is excited to show you advanced tell me and analyze.
Yeah, can't wait. So yeah, next couple of ones to kind of cover. The first one is part of the tell me functionality. So hopefully you're familiar with this view in BC, where you can search things. So I can search for items or those sorts of things, and it searches across my page or across my the rest of the things I have access to. What they've added is AI to this. So now instead of having to search for vendors all the time, I can search for suppliers. And what it's doing is instead of using the literal words on the name of the page, each page has, or lots of the pages that they want you to search for, have these kind of sub definitions, these kind of tooltips almost. And basically it's asking AI to search through those and give you the list so that it can be a bit more fuzzy with the way it uses language. So I don't even have to say suppliers. I can say people we buy stuff from. And in theory, it'll do the same thing. Now it's found me Shopify, say we buy stuff from vendors, and it will find that because I asked it a natural language query. So yeah, so it's not rocket science. It's just using that AI mechanism. It's the same mechanism it actually uses in the chat to identify what the right page is for things and what the way you should navigate to. It works for pages. It works for reports as well. So report views. It's pretty good. We find that it's pretty reliable, but it can be a bit funny. We noticed we were looking at examples of things like if we write selling stuff, I want to go and sell stuff. That will not bring you a sales order. Hang on, where's the part? It will bring me quotes, but not orders. So I can quote people, but I can't create a sales order. In fact, we couldn't find it, apart from saying sales order. We couldn't find it would point us at sales orders very quickly at all. Like, I want to create a document to ship stuff to customers from. I think that might work. Still, no sales orders. So, oh yeah, no, it's a bit down the list. Finally found it. So it can be a bit hit and miss, but it's really good if you're looking for things that you don't know, like setup VAT. It will go and find the VAT setup. It will look within page definition. If you want to know how to like add a member of staff, it'll probably go off and work out member of staff. It'll go off and work out employees. So it kind of is quite good at translating Business Central language to normal language quite well. So we use this quite a lot. Just a note though, the thing I miss about this is it doesn't search within data, but the standard search does. I still think people miss this. If I search here for Barolo, Barolo, I can actually say it doesn't find me a page, but I can search company data, and I can find all my items that've got that piece of text in it. So the new stuff, the AI doesn't search in data, but the standard one does if you use it that way. So that's this new search. Robbie did show you this page for setting things up, Copilot agents and capabilities. Interestingly, this isn't where you turn this one on. You'll notice it's not in here. You actually turn this on from feature management, because why not? Huh? So there is a feature at the top of your feature management called Advanced Tell Me, and it says on this one it's going to be automatically enabled from version 28, which is the version that's just come out a month ago. This system, spoilers, is actually from before that update. So they thought they were going to push out in version 28, but they didn't. If I just flip over to a BC28 system, a latest version, so the one hopefully you guys are all moving towards, you'll notice Advanced Tell Me is now coming in version 29. So you can turn it on, but they haven't automatically enabled it. So don't be surprised if you don't have it enabled by default.
That just takes us back to what you were saying at the beginning, doesn't it? About how stuff is in preview and then they say it's going to go into GA and then suddenly it gets delayed and it just happens over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the challenge with doing things with AI is it's a little bit like difficult to determine if it's going to work or not. So let's look at something else. So I've searched for products, that's found items, because most people say product when they mean item, or vice versa. But I wanted to move on to the next kind of AI feature. Robbie touched on this earlier. This is the idea of building analysis views. Now, hopefully you guys have all played the analysis views in lists in Business Central. They've been around for a little while. But if not, we'll show you some. So I'm on the item list here. So I can go and build an analysis view, basically a pivot view manually, or I can just get Copilot to do it for me. So I come into here and say, show me items by brand, and I want to see the inventory of them. Don't worry about spelling. As ever, this is probably the first time you've seen one of these kind of style prompt windows so far. They always have these little buttons, which is a prompt guide, and it does generally tell you all the capabilities. So I don't have to just make it up on the fly. So this will now go off, look at the list, and it will show me now, this is my sum of, so I can make that a bit wider, open inventory grouped by brand. So it's built my pivot for me. So you can do really quick and easy ones, but you can do more complex things on more complex lists. So the item list isn't always the best place because it's only got a certain set of data. What's much better is if we go somewhere like the item ledger entries. By the way, I was trying to show you item ledger entries from the advanced thing. I was like, well, I can type item ledger entries into here and it will find it in theory. Not very quickly, somewhere. But yeah, it's not obvious. It's not always great at finding the one you want. It's down there. We were trying to search like transaction history of stuff we've shipped, and it didn't find it. So yeah, your mileage may vary on it. Item ledger entries. So here, because I'm actually, and this is where analysis view is really powerful, it's not usually great pointing at the customer list or the vendor list or those sorts of things, or the item list. It's better when you point it at the transactional data and let it use that as its data source. So now I can say things like show shipments by item by year. And now, because I've got all the entries in my item ledger entry, it can summarize things up by the date columns, by year. I've got the item in here. It should generate me shipments. I want that, put that in pivot mode. Shipments by item by year. And I'm like, that's not really what I want. I wanted the years as columns. So I can say, I wanted the years as columns. And in theory, it will go off and adapt the analysis view on. So this is quite nice. Did it work? Maybe not. I probably messed it up somehow by messing around with it. Let's try that again. Let's go back. Let's do it again. Show me shipments by products by year. Apologies for that typing. The idea is that you can, much like a chat, interact with it and iterate. So you shouldn't start with asking for the world's most complicated reports. There we go, it's better. You should ask for something that's fairly straightforward and adapt from there. So this time it has given me the shipments by location. I can say, not by, don't group by location. And it'll go up and hopefully, if I've done this right, remove the location out of it. No, didn't. It's really not playing ball with me today, is it? There we go. We can also obviously adapt it in different ways. So I can say add months as well as years. This worked perfectly about 20 minutes ago. So yeah, again, as ever with AI, your mileage may vary. Now we should have sales shipments by, oh wow, it really didn't work. Okay, I'm going to just scrap this whole demo. It does work sometimes, I promise you. Really didn't want to have it. The idea is it can group by, what have I got in here? I don't want entry type. Let's remove some of this stuff. Don't know all these bits. Let's tidy up a bit. Anyway, there we go. Now it's got the month, me messing around with things. It's worth noting it understands the concepts of years, months, and days, and it'll pivot by them. So it has done the grouping for me. Despite there being no month column in BC, it does have the ability to go and find, separate out a date into a year, a day, and a month. Let's do that for you. So you can create these things as much as you want, but they are really nice.
It's worth saying, isn't it? And this is the case with everything we've looked at that doesn't always respond how we'd like, that as the tech constantly improves and the models constantly improve, all of this functionality, the existing stuff, will just get better, you'd hope.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. They are over time improving, but they are variable as well. I think it's worth, it's like talking to ChatGPT and Copilot. Sometimes you have to try a couple of times and it kind of reiterate your point or change your language or the way of asking it to suit what it's trying to do. But yeah, they are getting better over time. Definitely. So I'm going to move on back to PowerPoint. So there's two things there. Advanced Tell Me. It's semantic match. That's the big thing. So it's looking at what you intended to search, what you meant, not what the words were. And it does, yeah, as it says here, recognize common abbreviations. So when I search for product, it knows that means item and those sorts of things. If you search for UOM, it knows you mean unit of measure. There's some good prompts. Yeah, try approval workflows, set up VAT, chase overdue invoices, all these things. It'll work out what page you should go to. And it's the same engine that is in that chat thing. So when it says, show me my overdue customers, it knew where you should be going. You should be going to the customer list. To turn it on, feature management, advanced Tell Me. Interesting. I think it's worth turning on because it doesn't replace the standard Tell Me. So even if you turn it on, it won't affect users unless they go and use it actively. And the second one, analyzed by Copilot, builds on the really cool analysis views. It has loads of prompts. So yeah, prompts that work. These did work. We should go and try them again. But yeah, the big thing is you should create a simple one and then tweak it, ask Copilot to build on it. Obviously, once you've built something, you can save it and you can share that definition with other people. It understands data hierarchy. The big limitation, it's not the Copilot thing, but it's limitation of analysis views in BCs. They are limited to around 100,000 rows. So if you did point it at your item ledger entry table unfiltered since the beginning of time, and you've been running the system for a few years, you've probably got more than 100,000 entries in there, and it will tell you. It'll just say, hey, you need to filter this data before I analyze it. So you do need to think about limiting by date or by product or something to shorten your records you're analyzing. A bit like working Excel spreadsheets. You don't often throw 2 million rows Excel and then pivot it, although some people do.
Yeah, I'd say.
Some people definitely do. But those are the two I've got. Where next?
Nice. We're on to the operational stuff now. I put the real time savers. A lot of this stuff is about generating data in BC, either based on natural language or existing records and data in BC. Let me share my screen. And I will jump into BC. And the first thing we're going to look at is suggesting sales lines. So this works on all of our sales documents, orders, invoices, quotes. We're going to go to sales orders. If I can spell that correctly. If I'd use advanced tell me, maybe it would have found that. Let's go to this sales order. And in our sales lines list part down here, we've got our funky Copilot icon. And we've got two options here. We've got suggest sales lines and we've got suggest sales lines from a file. So if I select suggest sales lines, way too many words that begin with S, you'll see here we get again that Copilot natural language prompt. And the idea is in here, we can describe the items and the quantities and the units of measure that we want with natural language. And BC will do some semantic matching via Copilot and recommend sales lines for us to insert. So if I take something really simple, like I want some gin and I can remember that it's named after an animal, but I can't remember what the animal is, I'm going to say animal gin, generate. That's now going to run off, do a bit of semantic matching, and it has found elephant gin. Perfect. And if I hit insert, that inserts that sales line. Reasonably cool. I don't know how useful something like that would be, how often you would actually search for animal gin, I'm not sure. But if we take a more realistic scenario, if we go back to our suggest sales lines, we have received an email from a customer and they have said this: hi, could we reorder those drinks we were invoiced for in January, please? So that's another bit that this suggest sales lines can do. It's not just that it matches based on items, and also it searches things like item references and item attributes. It can also reference existing documents. So if you make reference to a specific invoice number or order number, or the last invoice I raised, or an invoice from January, it can reference that and find that.
It's a really nice example we talked before about they're not training the models, but they are passing it context. So this isn't that ChatGPT or the OpenAI models are now learned all your sales history. It's just passing it as context to that particular query. But it's a really nice use of the model seems to be learning. It seems to learn over time what this customer buys.
Yeah. And if I go generate, that has now found the posted sales invoice invoice that the customer is referencing. If I want, I can click on that and drill down, but it's then taken all of the drinks items from that invoice and applied them, and I can go insert and insert those sales lines. If we don't like them, you can delete the ones you don't like. We have this bit here for the matching, and what this does is controls how precise we want it to be. So it's when it generates the prompt, it will search. For example, if you take my animal gin, it effectively extracts primary keywords and extra keywords, and then attempts to match based on those keywords. So if we select permissive, it's going to be much more broad in the sorts of items that it matches with. If we go precise, it's that animal gin, for example, probably would not have worked. So you can select how precise you want that to be. If you also want to view the confidence, you can select lines in confidence. And if you generate that, it's not worked, and that's probably because it's pulling directly from a sales invoice. But what that would normally do is bring you up a column that shows you a confidence, and that's just high and medium, and some others as well. So if I go insert, that's going to pop those lines in. Nice. And the other thing to draw attention to, and this is probably the most useful one, or the one you'd use the most in real life, is this suggest sales lines from file. So you might have a third party. Perhaps you want to write an integration to push sales orders from some other app or third party into BC. In lieu of that, you could use this suggest sales lines from a file. So you can take that file, and here is a CSV. It must be a CSV that contains a bunch of items, quantities, units of measure. And if I select that, it's going to grab all of those values and generate me some sales lines. Really, really useful.
We are going to talk about Sales Order Agent in one of these future sessions, which is obviously the next step of what if I didn't want to have to drag and drop the file in. But yeah.
So that's generating sales lines. On a similar vein, I guess, we're going to look at generating item substitutions next. So if I go to my item list again, I select my Barolo, we have under item this substitutions bit. And the purpose of this is just that we can define substitutions so that if an item is out of stock from my sales order, I can select my sales order line, view valid substitutions, and swap them in effectively. But populating these involves someone going through and saying, this is a valid substitution, this isn't, etc. But what we've now got is this suggest with Copilot piece. So if I hit suggest with Copilot, it's going to search again using the current item. It's going to search all of my existing items, item references, and item attributes. There's a bit of a theme here, which is the better your data is, the better the results you're going to get from Copilot. And it's found a bunch of item substitutions. And again, I can delete the ones I don't like if I want. I can change how precise it is, whether it's super precise or it's fairly broad. I can also view that lines in confidence. So if I generate that this time, you should see we get a confidence score for all of these. Fairly high for all of them, as is expected, because they all contain Barolo in the description.
Worth noting that the AI isn't a sommelier. It's not a wine expert. It's not a whatever expert in the industry. It's as back to the ChatGPT Copilot thing. They are generalists. So this is doing it based on these things look the same textually. Like if clearly if everyone knows that Prosecco and Champagne are very similar things in theory, it might match those things, but it's probably not. It's not going to. There is nowhere in it, unfortunately, to give it your extra knowledge around your area of expertise. It would be a nice addition, I think, to this to be able to give it a some reference documentation to help it make decisions. But at the moment, it's fairly broad. So yeah, your mileage may vary.
Which is why I suppose in lieu of that, you should cram as much information as you can into attributes and categories and things like that. Yeah. So we can insert all, and that's going to pop all of those in. And now from my sales order, when I have this item, I can go to my substitutions action and I can sub those out for these records. And that was suggesting item substitutions. Let's jump back to the PowerPoint and we'll quickly review those. So suggesting sales lines. So we can type something in, we can paste emails in, or we can attach files and they've got to be CSVs, and Copilot will turn those into sales lines or suggest sales lines for us. And there's two bits in there. There's the ability to find items based on item numbers, references, SKUs, attributes, and it's also got the ability to find documents as well and grab the sales lines off those documents.
There was a question that came in. Can Copilot generate lines on bespoke pages or just standard pages such as sales orders? The answer to that is it's sales. It's only on standard pages. We could probably pick up the button and put it somewhere else, but it is for sales lines. You can't generate lines at the moment on a journal or on a purchase quote of those things. This is code written specifically for sales.
Yeah, but that's the standard. You could write some custom functionalities to do that, and I think we're going to cover that in one of our sessions in a few months. So if you do want that, it is possible, just not standard.
Another question just came in. Could the suggest lines from a file functionality be applied to a reserve in order, normally a file provided by another merchant transferring wines? At the moment, it only supports standard fields from what we've seen. So I don't know how extensible it is. It's a good question. We'll look into whether we can extend it to support the extra attributes that Bevic adds. At the moment, it's pretty basic.
Yeah. And I think we cover that in this tip. So you can see there that it's only going to populate your item, your number, your unit of measure, and your quantity. So price or other fields or custom fields specifically won't be included. You get that confidence column. So there's how it calculates whether it's high, medium, or low. It's based on that score out of 100. And the CSV, it only supports up to 10,000 characters, and it must be a CSV. It can't be any other sort of file. And to enable that, again, just go to your Copilot and agent capabilities and enable sales line suggestions. And then the second thing we looked at was that item substitution suggestions. So it's going to convert natural language, use semantic search, and find the relevant item, hopefully, or relevant items to substitute with. So from the item card, you go to substitutions and suggest with Copilot, and it uses an LLM and that embedded search. It looks across associated tables as well as just items to find a match. And those substitutions are then surfaced on the sales order at the sales line level for low stock. Tips, like we said, relevant data, attributes, categories are really, really important. This is just a theme. It's always been a theme with data and AI is the better your data is, the better the results you're going to get. Again, it scores with a confidence, just like the suggested sales lines does. And something we didn't look at is the prompt can actually be manually edited. So when you hit suggest item substitutions, it's actually writing a prompt and then running that in Copilot. And in that little prompt box, you can hit a pencil, and if you want, manually edit that prompt. A small tip. And again, Copilot and agent capabilities is where you enable that, and that's through create product information. There's more to come there, we think, and we'll discuss that at the end of the session. And I'll hand over to Paul.
I'm conscious of time, so I've got three kind of fairly small ones that I'll whip through. The first one is the oldest of all the grandfather of all the AI, the Copilot additions to BC, which hopefully you've all seen. It is on the item card, there is a marketing text box. And here, again, as Robbie says, based on all the attributes and all the information on the item record, you can go and get it to draft with Copilot a bunch of marketing text. Now, this is their first example because it's a fairly reasonably straightforward one, right? Take all this attribute and produce some text. But we actually see people using this, especially one of the big things they do is they push this through to Shopify. So if you've got the Shopify integration, it'll use this and it'll pass it up the chain. And as ever with AI and writing text, you'll get different results. It might not always be to your taste. You might have to edit it. But it's a good start, and if you're like me and not good at this stuff, it's better than not having it at all. As you can see, I can change my tone when I run it, so I can make it more creative. I want it to emphasize certain things, like emphasize these potential properties of it. I want to emphasize the speed of my wine.
And again, in the top left, you can see that there's a little pencil. So you can see that the prompt it's generating to get this marketing text. So if there's attributes that you don't want included, you can unselect the include thing so it doesn't get included.
Yeah, there you go. Can't do a bit normal. Yeah, so you can do all that. So you can manipulate it. As I said, it's obviously then you can edit it and change it as you like. So you don't have to stick with it, but it's a good start of a 10. It's been around for a long time. But yeah, we think the Shopify integration is really where it comes into play. They recently announced that if you're not using this piece, if this piece is empty and you've got product descriptions in Shopify, it will pull back into here now. So this marketing text isn't just a Copilot thing; it's a representation of what you've got on Shopify through that connector. So that's a real quick one. Marketing text. Next one, I think the Copilot stuff is all really good. This one is my least favorite. So be prepared to be unwowed. It's actually really clever. So one of the challenges when you're setting up Business Central is creating all the number series. Out of the box, there are some standard ones, but people often want to create them. And you have to go through a few steps. You've got to create the code. You've got to fill in some numbers. You've got to decide when they start and end. You've got to make sure that code is set on the right setup table. All that thing takes time. So what they did was they added a mechanism to be able to generate these. So I can say, create a number series for employee. And instead of me worrying about what my number series should be, it says, well, I'm going to create a number series called HREMP with a description of employee starting at E001, and I'm going to use that on this setup table. So you can then keep that and it will apply, it creates a number series. And now if I look at my HR setup table, it should have been populated in there. So it's a quick, nice, easy win. You can do it broader. You can say like generate all numbers for sales documents. In theory, it should go off and do it. Oh, maybe if I did the prompt correctly. You can go off and do that. Let's see if it'll do it. And it will generate multiple at the same time. But the reason I'm not a massive fan of it is because I've tried this a few times and you often get that. If you don't use quite specific phrasing, you get that error. And the other thing is, and I think this is true of all Copilot and AI stuff, is this is really cool for the consultant that sets this up in your system. And it might save, 10 minutes. But that's 10 minutes once. Generating marketing text might save 10 minutes 100 times. Doing the sales line suggestion might save 15 minutes 100 times a month. Those sort of things add multipliers in their value. I think this is really cool, but you use it once usually, unless you're the sort of people that generate new number series every year or for loads of different document types. So yeah, I think it's clever technology. But I think as ever, we should focus our use of AI on things that have repeating value as opposed to helping one-off problems. There you go. That was a negative one, wasn't it?
I like it for what it's worth. I do like it, but you are right that it's Yeah,
I
I
think
like it because when I
everyone in
need
this
it.
building, they like it because we do this a lot. Because we have to do
Yeah.
this. Lastly, if I just go to customers, you'll see this throughout the system. There is, in lots of boxes, there is now a sparkle. If I click on this, this is an autofill. So Microsoft added the ability to use Copilot to autofill values in your data sets if you want it to. And what this does, if I pick, say, address, it's going off and actually worked out that the best solution to this is, because I've got it enabled, to go hit Bing and search for the details it has of this customer and potentially work out what their address and those sort of things are. Really having a bad day of doing this, aren't we? It honestly worked yesterday. So it'll go off, hit Bing, try and find appropriate results, and fill it in for you. Now, the thing that's worth noting is it does it when you click. It doesn't matter really which field you click on. It tries and answers it. It tries to make the answer for all the fields in that fast tab. So by doing address, if it ever works, and I can try it on a different customer in a minute. There you go, perfect. It will fill in all the fields in the fast tab. You can't just make it do it for one. It does it for all in the fast tab. And it will tell you, firstly, it says these are suggestions, they aren't the values. If I close the screen now, nothing is saved. It hasn't written those values to the fields. I have to accept them. So I can go and say, yeah, that's a good one. I've also got an information to tell me why that suggestion came up. So it actually found on embassypages.com the address of the Embassy of Uruguay's location in London. So that seems like a good answer. And if I want to, I can go and say, keep all of those. We find this is really good for looking out into the wider world on publicly accessible information. That Bing search is really the superpower here. It can go off and do things like try to predict what your customer price group should be, or your customer discount group, or the item category. What we've found is the reasonings it uses are sometimes really accurate, but sometimes are a bit like, well, this is the last one you used, or most of your database has this set up, and those sorts of things. So again, your mileage will vary on where you can use these. It's worth testing in your system with your data. It also does this on that reg. It says, well, a typical VAT reg is kind of something like this. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you do have to monitor it and keep an eye on it. But it can be quite valuable. It can be quite useful, especially for filling out, again, information that you get from the open internet. It's really, really good at that. And it is sometimes quite good at categorizing based on predictability of the rest of your data in your database. But those are 3 really little quick ones to move us on to bigger things. So there's 3 marketing text suggestions. It's on the item card. It uses the item categories and attributes. So focus on what they are, make sure those are filled out if you want to use this. And it does support various languages, but the quality will vary based on the rest of your data set. My big thing of this is it used to be just a thing you did once and could look at or push out to wherever you wanted it to be. Now it's integrated with Shopify in both directions, which is nice. Number series, really good. You can use them to create new ones. You can use them to prepare for next year. So if you are doing that sort of thing, of where you want to do year prefixed series, you can do it through this. And it will go and generate multiple ones at the same time and put them into the right set of pages, which is quite nice. And the last one, autofill fields. It uses your recent values, things you've entered, any data you've got in the system, like related records. It uses Bing, and it uses kind of AI inference, this idea of, well, the VAT code should look something like this. You can always see where the value came from before accepting it. It's always a suggestion, not hard-coded. So if you don't like them, just close the screen. And if Bing searches off, you do get reduced value from my perspective. You only get the stuff inside the system. And again, a bit like the item substitutions, it's not an expert in wine or whatever else your industry is. So when you ask it to categorize something, it's doing it based on language as opposed to pure industry knowledge. And those are my 3. Let's move on to the last couple, looking at the clock, of accounting, where it really has superpowers.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, 2 more to go. I will share my screen. And let's jump back into BC. Oh, there we go. And the first one we're going to look at is bank account reconciliation assistance. So if I go to my bank account reconciliations page, so this, as standard, is about comparing our bank statements on the left with effectively our internal books in BC on the right. So just to make sure they match, it's a bit of a sanity check. So we can catch errors, we can catch unrecorded transaction or dodgy looking transactions, etc. So over here are our ledger entries. These are customer payments, these are vendor payments, these are payroll, bank transfers, that kind of thing. And on the left, we've got our bank statement lines. This is already populated. I populated it from a file, but what we would normally do, excuse me, is go to bank and import bank statement, and we can then import a CSV from our bank, and it will create these lines for us. And what we would normally do is then we begin to match these against the associated or the relevant account ledger entries. So what we can do is go match automatically. And what this will do is, it's great for clean data. So it is going to see that over here, I've got a description of CRJ 00041. I've got this transaction date of the 4th of Jan, and I've got this amount. And it's fairly easy to map that to a relevant bank account ledger entry. This has got the same posting date as the transaction date over here. The document number matches that thing in the description, and the amount's the same. And it's done the same for the bank service charge. The descriptions match identically, the amounts match, and so do the posting dates. But it's missed 3 more. It's missed this line, it's missed this wire transfer inbound line, and it's missed this penny bank service charge line. If we take a look at the wire transfer inbound, if we look over here, we can see that this clearly maps to this because the statement amount is identical. The problem is the description is super vague and the transaction date doesn't match the posting date. So it's not managed to do that through match automatically or auto match as Microsoft call it. And the second one is we have a statement line here that looks like it's a one-to-many. So it's got CRJ10 and CRJ20. And over here, we have CRJ10 and CRJ20. And those amounts combined equals this statement amount. And that is where Copilot's reconcile comes in. So if we hit that, it's going to use semantic matching. It's going to look at those description fields. It's going to combine amount fields, etc., and suggest some matches for us. So if we do that, we can see it has proposed 2 matches. And the first it's done is that wire transfer inbound. And it's correctly said, well, the amount to apply is identical between the 2. So I'm matching it to this one. And it's also said this line looks like it's a combination of multiple entries over here. And we can drill down and view what those entries are. And if we go keep it, it's now matched all of those correctly. You will notice that for our CRJ 10 and 20, these actually come from different customers. We know these are different customers. So that's something that's worth pointing out, is that Copilot isn't going to analyze this or flag things as suspicious. It's purely a semantic match. It's not going to say, these are from 2 different customers. That doesn't seem quite right. Just semantic matching. The final thing that it's missed is this bank service charge of 1 penny, because there's no related bank account ledger entry record for it over here. And that is where this Copilot post difference to GL account is. So if we run that, we select it and we say post difference to GL account, what that's going to do is see that I've had a previous bank service charge which is already matched, and it's going to apply the same journal template name, the same journal batch name, and the same GL account. And when we say keep it, it's then going to post that into our bank account ledger entries with a value of 1 penny, which has appeared at the top there. So super, super useful, this one. I rattled through that fairly quickly because we're a bit low on time. If we jump back to our PowerPoint and we'll do a quick review of that. So 2 AI capabilities there. The AI-powered matching, which is great for those one-to-many and many-to-one matching, where we've got deposits that match a bunch of different invoices. And it also does that fuzzy semantic search on descriptions and dates and amounts. Really useful. And we've also got that transfer to GL account functionality. So for stuff that's unmatched, it's going to propose a GL account for the unmatched line. And when we save it, it's going to record that mapping. So in the future, like we saw, if it sees lines with a similar description, it will know which GL account to map it to. And it's also going to create bank account ledger entries for us as well. Copilot, some tips there. Copilot supplements the auto match. So run the auto match, and for stuff that isn't matched, you can then run that Copilot piece. It's not used for fraud detection, duplicate payment detection, for detecting things that just don't look quite right. Microsoft have explicitly said that. So that's where the human element comes in, to figure out that doesn't look right. It's also risk averse by design. So you'll see that in some of the other bits we looked at, we could define how precise we wanted it to be. We don't get that here. Risk averse by design. And again, to enable that, we go to Copilot and agent capabilities. We know this already, and the bank account reconciliation record. And I'll hand over to Paul for the last bit of functionality to look at.
Yeah, who knew there was so much to talk about? So, last piece. We're almost at the end, everyone. So, I don't know how many of you guys have looked at e-documents or e-invoices in Business Central, but it's a big area, obviously, with government regulations and requirements coming in across Europe and the UK. So, Microsoft really investing in it. So, the last piece they've introduced is functionality directly in e-documents. If you don't know what this is, primarily it's a way of processing electronic invoices. So I'm going to actually, instead of, usually you'd pull this from a service, you know, a Pagero or a Continua or those sorts of things. I'm going to just go and get it from a file. I've picked my format, and I'm going to grab a hopeful file. If I can grab it from over there, come over here. So I drop my file in. None of this is magic. This is just normal e-document stuff. So what my file contains is the electronic version of the invoice from the supplier. The task for me as a user is to match that to a purchase order so I can reconcile it and post it. Now, the e-document piece, when you import an e-document, it already does some matching to work out which order it is. That isn't Copilot. That's just picking up references from within the e-invoice. So it's found that I have an order, and it's found that these are the lines, I should go with that. These are the lines that came on the invoice file. And my job is now to go and match that. So I can use Copilot. I can match it manually, but we're in Copilot land here. So let's press the match purchase order. And what that does is, in a very similar way to the bank reconciliations piece that Robbie just showed, it goes off and looks at my purchase order and says, based on the semantics of what I'm looking at, based on the line description, the quantity, and the unit cost, it goes and makes a match to certain lines. So here it says, there was a line for Kenya AA washed roast beans, and it's matched to this purchase order line. And here I can see this is what's on my e-documents, and it's done a semantic match. It's worked out that if I said Kenya AA washed roast beans, that matches pretty well to whole roasted beans from Kenya. The quantity was the same, and the document cost is the same across those two things. So it's done 100% match, really confident. These ones, it's done a less confident match, primarily because the descriptions are slightly different, or more, this Columbia decaf natural process whole beans is less close, but it's probably made a decent guess at it. And all the way down to the bottom one where it's made a 10% match, but actually it's still done a decent job. Smart Grind Home is a Smart Series home coffee grinder. So those things I'm happy with that match. So it's using the same technology really as in the bank rec to make that match between what's on the purchase invoice the supplier sent and what was on my purchase order that I've receipted. The thing it missed though is it missed one line. It missed this one, and it missed it because there's a price difference. I can tell you that because I looked at it earlier. No, go away. We don't need the source of that. Here we can see I've got on that line the price on here is 152 and the actual price on the purchase order is 149. It won't match that. That's because there's a setup in the purchase and payable setup called e-document matching difference, and here I've got set that difference at 0%. If I sent it to something crazy like 20% or whatever it may be, I can't work out the maths on this, 10% difference, it'll then accommodate that in the Copilot matching. There's also another setting here that says learn the Copilot matchings. Again, much like the bank rec, when it looked at the bank charge, over time it will learn. You can tell it basically when I do a match on these ones, on that match, it will say, well, I match Columbia decaf natural process, whatever it may be, to this line here. Therefore, store in my item references that is the name and the number that my supplier uses. Which means next time I don't need to ask an AI to do that match at all. It'll just run through normal lookup logic, which will make the process quicker and more reliable. But now I can go and match with Copilot again. And because I changed that percentage, I should get this line appears now it's actually in a kind of browny green, browny yellow, to show that it's got a price difference. And I can see on the proposed difference, I can see on the proposal that it's going to match, but with that difference within tolerance. I keep that, I can apply that to purchase order, and then my purchase order matching is done. And that's basically what they've done. They've added this mechanism for matching purchase invoices to purchase orders into the e-document framework, which, when we come and talk to you about the payables agent, is the same place that the payables agent puts inbound purchase invoices. So it's all the same tooling they're using. So whether the document comes in through an e-invoicing, an e-document service, or through the payables agent, it uses the same technology to do this matching to purchase orders and purchase invoices. So that's my last one. So it's currently supports anything that the e-document supports, primarily out of the box. That's PEPL formats. We will try and do a session actually in a different stream on e-documents and e-invoicing. As it says, it tries to do an 80% string match as standard, and then it passes off to Copilot. So Copilot does the semantic, the kind of inference idea of what's that description, any references, any mappings. It will do, this invoice has 2 lines, the PO has 1, so it will do proposed split. And turning on the those settings in payable setup, in particular the create the matching rule, so you don't have to, it remembers what the vendor calls the products, is really good. And turning on that percentage difference for price if you're happy with it. Note, it doesn't work if the VAT percentage difference differs, then it just won't match at all and you have to handle it manually. And that's the last of all the features. I shall pass back to Robbie to get us to a close.
Cool. We did have a question in chat from Jake, which we missed, which was at 22:11, which said, does this work in the sales line worksheet? I'm guessing that relates to suggest sales lines. The answer would be no. It only works on sales documents at the moment. Again, we could implement that as custom, but as standard, no, it doesn't work. I will share my screen and let's do a quick wrap up. What's next and wrap up. So in terms of what's next, what's on the roadmap, Microsoft have added or signaled some more Copilot functionality coming in the newer releases. There's a lot more agent stuff, to be honest, not quite as much Copilot functionality. What they have announced is a sustainability emissions suggestions. So we have this sustainability journal where you can log emissions and water and waste intensity and that kind of thing. There will soon be some Copilot functionality that will suggest CO2 emissions for the records in that journal. There's also create product information faster, I've put there. So you'll see in the Copilot capabilities screen, to enable the item substitutions, it's actually called create product information. And that's because in the future, Microsoft have signaled that you'll be able to generate dimensions for your items, variants, and units of measure as well using Copilot. However, that has been proposed for quite a while and we haven't heard anything just yet. So this year, hopefully, but yeah, not entirely sure. More languages as well. That might actually already be out, supporting more languages. I'm not quite sure. That has been, that's on the roadmap. And then we've put here as well, possible fair use. This is a bit more fuzzy. This is just that Microsoft, as we discussed right at the beginning, have hinted at quotas of fair use pricing if people really push the limits of Copilot usage. But as we discussed, this isn't agentic. It's quite difficult to get it to generate tons and tons and tons and tons of data. So I think people would have to find some workaround really before Microsoft introduce a fair use policy. I don't know what you think, Paul.
My prediction is that they will, if it becomes a problem, they'll introduce a kind of, it flows over into your Copilot credits, much like agents do. So you'll end up with a quota you get free of your license, and then if you go over that boundary, you'll start incurring costs. But again, these are a few pence per call, then, or a couple of credits per call max. They're not like agentic workflows.
Yeah. And we have one more slide, one more ask of you. If you could please scan this QR code and complete it's a Microsoft questionnaire, fairly short, and we will make it worth your while. Everyone who completes the survey gets put into a draw, and you can get a £50 Amazon voucher, or you can donate £50 to a charity of your choice. And with that, we are 12 minutes over. There are no more questions that I can see. If you have any, feel free to chuck them in very quickly now, or email us after the session. I will pop our emails up Now, there are email addresses. We love talking about this stuff. We always say that. So any questions, or you just want to talk about stuff that you like or stuff that you don't, please shoot us a message. Thank you all for staying late. You're legends.
Right.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everyone. Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your day.